Today I'm going to talk to you about retail and some of the things that my sort of journey over the years through multiple consulting firms, corporations, and now with Frog, based in their Brooklyn studio, some of the things that we've been seeing and how it's really changed. I'm not going to say these two companies' names because anytime anybody talks about retail, this is all you talk about, but it's important, and I'll come back to them. I just want to give quick credit to two of my colleagues, Sienna Hickey and Claire Lorman, who are really instrumental in putting this together. And a lot of this came out of a project that we just did, helping a very large sporting goods companies create one of the, hopefully, if their stock price comes back, one of the greatest pieces of retail experience in the world. At least it'll be the most expensive real estate. So, quick, I got to show the video. This is just my sales job, which actually is a pretty interesting video. Just a little bit about what Frog is up to and what we're doing today. So the myth of Omnichannel. Here's what I'm going to talk about, some recent events, what we're calling a purpose-driven service ecosystem, which actually a lot of what Shelley talked about systems is actually very relevant to what I'm going to talk about. And it's really this new focus of looking at these series of systems that in retail really need to come together and merge to create this value offering. Changing consumer behavior. I tend to always do this in these talks, just some of the new things that we're seeing out there in the world as we talk to consumers. How disruption is really becoming differentiation. And then just recap what the purpose-driven service ecosystem means. So this is sort of some recent events, and it kind of makes this problem seem binary, but it really isn't. Obviously, Seattle just made an acquisition of Whole Foods. That's very significant of an online-only retailer to all of a sudden overnight have that much square footage out there in the real world. And then Bentonville and their acquisition of Jet.com. Obviously, Jet.com is a very transparent organization, really focused on saving money, very much aligned with Bentonville's ecosystem. They even made the CEO of Jet.com the head of their e-commerce. So this is just really kind of laying the land, and what a lot of retailers are sort of in this, they're crunched in between these two beasts. And it's not necessarily, I'm not coming back with solutions, but more of things that you need to consider, because of this, things like brand, people are no longer, especially millennials, brand isn't as important to them as experiences and services and what you actually can deliver to them. So I'll talk about that in a little bit. So what the heck is a purpose-driven ecosystem? It's a lot of words. But it's really just looking at these three major ecosystems that exist. We've always talked about in service design, we're designing for ecosystems. A few years ago in San Francisco, Carrie Bonine and I talked about how you really have to look at these ecosystems, and we designed individual touch points to drive these ecosystems. But if you think about now, today, consumers have their ecosystems that they live in, organizations have their ecosystems that they've built over the years, and there's ecosystems out there in the market. Lots of things happening together, creating ripples. It's no longer linear, and that's really the big relevant takeaway from this is we talk about journeys all the time, and in retail, it's not a journey anymore. It's not linear. It's a web. It's omnipresent, and you have to start thinking about this. And at Frog, this is how we started addressing this challenge of the fact that retail is everywhere. I got a cash register in my pocket wherever I am, and I can jump from channels any millisecond of the day. So what we're looking at is how do you create purpose for all these ecosystems to bring them together? Oh, sorry, a little too fast on the clicks. So, and by defining your purpose, your reason for being, your value proposition, there's a lot of words. We're generally not hung up on words or vernacular. We generally try to use whatever our clients are speaking, try to speak their language as much as possible. But these ecosystems, we're designing how we bring them together. And when you identify the purpose of the consumer, the purpose of the organization, and what's going out there in the market, you can identify where there's these linkages. And when you use purpose to drive these linkages, it's much stickier. I'll talk about that in a moment. But really what's driving this thinking is that consumers' needs are changing, and they're more and more empowered to do something about it. Consumers kind of own the relationship now, which has been a very big transition in the past 30 years since I've been working in retail. One of the first things is relevance. So brands are no longer relevant to individual consumers, especially millennials. They're abandoning brand loyalty. It's not that they're loyal to the brand, they're loyal to what it might stand for, once again, purpose. So you see a lot of these, there's a lot of changing, there's less brand loyalty, people are switching based on whatever's easiest or convenient. I'll talk about that in a second. But they're also shifting from brand to experience. We all know what's happening in social media, and with millennials, if they haven't recorded that experience, it didn't happen. And that experience, that's their cachet. That's their personal brands or the experiences that they have. So it's not about this brand loyalty, it's about the experiences that they can get with purpose. And we see a lot of new organizations popping up that really are coming forward with their values. And values become more important than just sort of your brand persona. Second trend is, and as I reference, is experience. They're trading products for services, and this is obviously across the board. I don't have any loyalty to a hotel chain anymore because really what I'm just looking to do is a travel experience, and brands like Airbnb are able to deliver that for me. I'm not loyal to Holiday Inn. I'm loyal to whoever is going to give me the type of experience that I want at that location when I want it. And this is really, and for me, and this is the golden age of service design that we're in. All of these companies are trying to figure out how they can, if they sell stuff, make widgets, how they can transform their company into delivering services and experiences. Which is, I think, one of the things that Shelley brought up is, and from the John Maeda data, that's what these big business consultancies are doing. That's the reason why they're gobbling up service design firms. In fact, two very close friends of mine, their firms got acquired by one company almost within months of each other. In fact, half the people that I know are all working for the same business consultancy, which is now really transforming into a design firm. Personalization. This is another piece of the puzzle. It's so much easier to personalize things. And there's a whole new generation that aren't going to see this personalization as creepy. Right now, I think some of us older, when I'm going and I'm searching something on Google and all these ads start popping up with things that I might have searched weeks ago, there's kind of a bit of a creep factor. Well, my 9-year-old and 11-year-old, that's not a creep factor. That's an expectation that they expect, that's what they expect in their online navigation. They now expect that in the real world. Why is it that when I walk up to a maitre d' stand at a restaurant, they don't already know me and know what I want and know my preferences? And this is turning into the fact that what brands and organizations that can serve up this curated experience that's focused on them, they're the ones that are going to win, and there's a premium being paid for it. I think you'll start seeing older generations start coming along as they sort of get over this creepiness factor and really begin to understand the value that they receive when you give your information. And I think for anybody who's worked in the retail realm, it's, the biggest thing today is how do I get that person's email address so that I can then market them and communicate to them in a more personalized manner. Well, that's a really big uphill battle. Solution's going to be to give these curated experiences, to give a better offering that they see the value in giving you their personal information. And then transparency. I mean, we see this, and really the consumer-driven marketing is really what's driving a lot of purchase behavior. Obviously, our friends in Seattle kind of invented this idea of the review, the third-party endorsement. There's very few people today that make purchase decisions without looking what a third party is going to say about it. And the irony of it is that third party could be a complete psychopath. But you'll see their review and you'll say, great, that was somebody else, it wasn't the brand. And it's this level of transparency that's being created in the relationships between organizations and consumers. And so being more transparent, being more open, also drives to, and a lot of companies are using this as the focus of their purpose, their reason for being. And then last, time, and this is one of my sort of these universal truths. If any of you heard me speak at the last service design gathering here in Chicago, we spend 80% of our healthcare costs in the last 30 days of our lives. We want more time. And no matter how rich you are, race, color, creed, religion, we all have a limited amount of time. And with all of these new avenues of entertainment, information, I mean, on my phone, I've got, through my family and friends, 8 different cable companies, Fios, Xfinity, on my phone that I can access at any time. It's unprecedented the amount of information. What that leads to is, well, all my free time is being used up by entertainment. Now I have access to all of these other things. So our time is we're getting busier, our time is getting more and more precious. So this is what's driving convenience. And really that's where we're seeing, that's what Bentonville and Seattle are really driving at, this ultimate convenience. Seattle's primary, I would say their primary purpose is to just make it faster and easier for you to get your stuff. And where they're going is they're going to turn into a utility where it's just like the electricity. We all expect the electricity and the water to start running. That wasn't always the case. And someday we're all just going to expect when we speak something or think something, our packages are going to show up at our door. That will be the future. So this convenience is just going to grow, and you need to understand that. And there's level of convenience and level of time respect. So just a few, this is sort of some exercises that we do, and it kind of helps us begin to understand like what ifs could be as you bring ecosystems together. So I want to share a few examples. So stepping outside of retail, and this is always something that we like to do, is look at what other analogous experiences, analogous of industries we can learn from. So some really interesting things that have been happening. So PepsiCo and the Sound Drop. This is a joint venture. PepsiCo really developed Sound Drop, but what Pepsi's doing is bringing their ecosystem of beverage, albeit it's mainly sugar water, but Pepsi is one of the companies that's trying to drive towards nutrition and move away from that, and Sound Drop, which is basically a music label, so that Pepsi can be the one that's bringing these two ecosystems, you know, taste entertainment and audio entertainment, and bring them together. General Mills and 301. Shelley talked about startups within big organizations and the challenges facing that. General Mills understood, like, if they want to innovate, instead of just making another form of Captain Crunch or whatever cereal they're making, they really needed to bring in and create a different group to drive innovation, to look for new categories that they're not even thinking about. So if you think about building purposeful driven partnerships to serve your consumers' emotional needs, here's just a what if. So what if Lululemon got together with a farmer's market? And obviously Lululemon is about a lifestyle, about a wellness, about being a better you. Farmer's market about eating closer. So if you bring those together, those two ecosystems, then both of them are driving and delivering on that same similar purpose. The second one, stepping outside and looking at healthcare. Genentech and For Her is an application support tool for women with cancer. And Genentech is a company that makes cancer drugs. So they saw if they wanted to be more part of a valuable part of the cancer patients' lives, they needed partnerships. They were going to go create For Her application about support. They might have been able to do that, put a lot of money into it, but it probably wouldn't have been successful. They're too big of organizations. So these two ecosystems came together to create a greater sum than their parts. Pfizer and Quitter Circle. Pfizer makes smoking cessation products. Circle's application is a smoking cessation service, albeit a digital online platform, but bringing those two ecosystems to provide a wider level of service. And in that respect, in some ways, it really is greater than the sum of the parts. You've got the support of Circle, and you've got the product and the medicine to help you quit smoking. So if you think of routine customers, what kind of routines they're doing, and this is my favorite mashup, but what if Foot Locker and Taco Bell came together? Urban focus, Foot Locker, Taco Bell, it's a quick experience, it's not expensive, so I go to Taco Bell while I pine for those $200 new Air Jordans. So bringing these two cultures together, using the purpose of Liv Moss and Foot Locker. I don't even really know what Foot Locker's brand differentiation is other than footwear, but bringing those things together creates a greater sum than the whole of the parts, and it's an experience. So the last one, and which is one of my favorite industries to talk about, is the airline industry. By the way, has anybody tried United's new basic fare ticket in the room? I'm getting on a pedestal today. Don't buy it. Don't try it. Don't do it. It's the most horrible thing on earth. You literally feel like you're captured. You don't get a ticket, and I was the last seat in the last row in the airplane. It's horrible. It's not worth the money saving. Even the woman at the United counter yelled at me for buying it. So the American Advantage program, and airlines, a lot of airlines are doing this, where they're partnering with the last mile. They're going for the last mile and partnering with American Advantage is you can use your miles for other modes of transportation that maybe American isn't looking at. Delta and Lyft really going to that last mile because they're understanding that their purpose isn't about flying planes. Their purpose is about getting you from your origin to your destination and doing it as seamless and easy as possible. So they said, we can't do it. We're going to bring in partners, and we're going to merge these two ecosystems to deliver this total offering. So in this one, and this this one I would love to take to Barnes & Noble because I think it could be the future for them. They are struggling. Obviously, brick and mortar books is a tough area to be in, although we're seeing this new regrowth of independent bookstores. But what if Barnes & Noble changed their purpose to be about education and knowledge? So for this one, what if the loyalty scheme is if you come in with your report card and you get benefits, whether it's free books, whether it's extra tutoring, or maybe you come in a report card and you got a bad grade, you get free tutoring. So if Barnes & Noble begins to think about their purpose as being education and knowledge, it begins to change their entire service offering. It changes why they exist. And this is one of the biggest things that retailers like Barnes & Noble are struggling with today, to redefine their purpose in this world, in a very quickly changing world. So we're going to wrap this up in a pretty bow and leave a bunch of time for discussion. But the three benefits of purpose-driven ecosystems, really one, it creates stickiness. So every organization out there is trying loyalty programs, and Thomas and I, formerly with an organization that pretty much put all of their eggs in the one basket of loyalty. The problem with loyalty, though, is A, if the transactions are too far apart, nobody remembers that they got any reward. And B, if the rewards aren't really enough for me to drive engagement with that loyalty. But when you rethink about it in terms of bringing ecosystems together, multiple touch points within those ecosystems that get connected, you create this stickiness. It's tough for people to opt out of that. It's easy for people to opt out of brand loyalty, that's what we're hearing, but it's much more difficult to opt out of an integrated ecosystem. Part two. So it creates relevant emotional experiences. If your focus is on a purpose, purpose usually has an emotional component of why somebody has that purpose because it's really tied to my values. So if you focus on that and you create these experiences that are emotionally relevant, it's another way to create loyalty, but it also creates something that people want to share, that people then want to tweet out, that people then want to make part of their social media, that then engages that third party, that transparency, because I'm seeing the third party talk about it and rave about how great it was. Oh, look, my number is off. So there's 3, but we're numbered them 5. I'm not going to show you 2 and 4. The last one is really purpose-driven ecosystems differentiate in the marketplace. They allow organizations to come up with new offerings that might not seem typical. Like if Barnes & Noble were to go, their purpose is education, well, having a reward program based on your child's report card, that's a very differentiated experience, a very differentiated loyalty model. What if Barnes & Noble starts supporting teachers and being a avenue for teachers coming together? It grows on itself, and they become differentiated in the marketplace. They end up having an offering that is very difficult for anybody else to come into that area. It becomes extremely defensible. So this was short and sweet. I just want to sort of deliver and talk about this idea of these ecosystems. It's not necessarily new, but this idea of defining that purpose and then bringing those ecosystems together, we think is unique, and we're already seeing some benefits with our clients at Frog. Thank you very much for your time.